Tatsächlich, ja, ich danke dir. Okay. Um, well, let's start, I think. Um, Hello, and I'd like to give a very warm welcome to all our guests and exchange students from Tanzania this week. I hope Andre Gomez provides all of you with interesting insights into not only the Ludwig-Maximilians-Universität in Munich, but also the city of Munich and the countryside of Bavaria as well. Welcome to this, lecture series or the seminar that Andre and me are teaching in this winter semester. My name is Christoph Schneider. I am a research assistant at the Research Center for Value Education and Teacher Training here at LMU. And well, I'm just going ahead and starting right there. I've prepared some slides for us for an hopefully insightful insight into some concepts I stumbled upon while preparing this session today. And at the end, I would like to get into or we would like to get into a discussion on what might be the core practices of hospital pedagogy. Core practices are a kind of theory or theory praxis, a practical approach in teacher training that is gaining quite some traction over the last few years, especially in Germany and especially in Bavarian teacher training. But more on that later. I am jumping over that thing. I was concerned with the question of what is health in my preparations for this session. And well, nearly everybody who is taking part in discourses on health or pedagogy in hospitals or ethics, I myself do quite some research on health ethics and ethics in nursing, especially. And everybody knows the definition of the World Health Organization from 1948, which is very old by now, but still, up to date in its very own right. Health is a state of complete mental, physical, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Enjoying the best possible state of health is a fundamental right of every human being without distinction of race, religion, political belief, economic, or social position. Quite interestingly, this definition by the WHO gets criticized very often due to its, well, kinda not very transparent focus. It is not, well, there is no concretion in this definition in any direction. And there are other definitions of health which I'm not getting into right now. For example, by a German philosopher Hans-Georg Gadamer, who quoted my personal favorite definition of health. He once wrote in a small book he published 50 years ago. Health is what takes place when I'm not recognizing it, when I'm not recognizing that I'm healthy, because we usually only recognize that we were healthy at one point in our lives when we are not healthy anymore. Kind of going into the same direction, Tucker Parsons, who was an American sociologist who actually died in Munich, he once said that health is being able to take part in social relations, however they look, which gives a more direct focus. He focuses on social relations, but the definition you are seeing right now by the World Health Organization doesn't really give any kind of concretion concerning its outcome. They they seem to recognize that a few years after they first published that definition of health, and then offered some further insights into their thinking by the so-called Ottawa Charter from 1968. So 40 years after the first WHO definition of health, and following up with that, 10 years later, the so-called Jakarta Declaration. I'm very sorry I didn't quite translate that on on the slide, but I've done my best here. And I'm just presenting to you now a few very interesting quotes I found while reading those two papers, and I would like to get into a small discussion afterwards on how their approach to health and being healthy and also promoting health and prevention of a disease, how they changed up that focus over the 11 years from the Ottawa Charter to the Declaration of Jakarta. Starting up with the Ottawa Charter, in 1968, they wrote, "The fundamental conditions and constituent elements of health are peace, adequate housing, education, nutrition, income, a stable ecosystem, careful use of available natural resources, social justice, and equal opportunities. Any improvement in health is inevitably linked to these basic requirements." I find it quite interesting that they call out relatively logical things like nutrition and a stable ecosystem, natural resources and such, but also social justice, equal opportunities, and especially education. They are counting down some very important points, and education is just in the middle, somewhere like an addendum to the other points that are mentioned here, but education, and this is something that we will see over the semester, I think is a fundamental part of health, and also the question of how, as hospital pedagogues, we can take part in discourses on health and how we can promote and prevent health and disease when it comes to our work in hospitals. Further, the WHO calls out that good health is an essential prerequisite for social, economic, and personal development and a crucial component of quality of life. Political, economic, social, cultural, biological, environmental, and behavioral factors can all either promote or damage health. Health promotion aims to positively influence these factors through active advocacy and make them conducive to good health. Quite interestingly, this quote and the first quote I showed you a minute ago are from the same document, but in this quote, which finds itself a few lines down from where I found the first one, in this quote, education and also the school system, and not even speaking of hospital pedagogues in any sense, aren't mentioned again. Right now, they're concerning themselves with social and especially also economic things, a little bit of behavioral factors and environmental, which might kind of point into the direction of hospital pedagogy or even education itself. But in a common sense, they aren't mentioning education as a part of health here anymore, which I found quite interesting because it shows that they are in this document, in the Ottawa Charter, it kind of misses the point there a bit. And we will see that further right now with this bigger quote. Health promotion aims to achieve equality of opportunity in the field of health. Health promotion activities seek to reduce existing social inequalities in health and to create equal opportunities and conditions so that all people are empowered to realize their maximum health potential. This includes security and roots in a supportive social environment, access to all essential information, and the development of practical skills, as well as the ability to make decisions about one's own health. People can only realize their health potential to the fullest extent if they can influence the factors that affect their health. This applies to women as well as men. Here, education isn't mentioned directly as well, but at least they are pointing in a direction which I would call more right than before, because they directly point out that information and practical skills and the ability to make decisions are important when it comes to health prevention and health promotion. And they also point into the direction of hospital pedagogy because this is something we discussed in our first and also I think with Andre in your session last week. A certain or a very kind of fundamental objective of hospital pedagogy is to give ill or sick students in the hospital the opportunity to kind of take part in a bit of normal life again and also to provide them with the needed skills so that they can return to their common life. And this is something that is kind of mentioned here when it said that health promotion activities seek to reduce existing social inequalities in health and to create equal opportunities and conditions so that all people are empowered to realize their maximum health potential. I think I'll leave. Yeah, no, I won't leave it out. The health sector alone cannot guarantee the conditions and prospects for good health. Well, and then afterwards it said that health promotion requires coordinated action involving those responsible in government, health, social, and economic sectors, in non-governmental and self-organized associations and initiatives, local institutions, industry, and the media. Education isn't mentioned here as well, and also hospital pedagogues aren't mentioned here as well, but at least they are saying that the health sector alone cannot guarantee it. So the social sector has to kind of step in via hospital pedagogy. I would personally say that that's only my or just my personal opinion. Well, the so-called Jakarta Declaration that was written 11 years later supplements the perspectives of the Ottawa Charter with priorities for health promotion in the 21st century. Interestingly, they call it priorities now. They didn't call it priorities back then, but they are saying that important is promoting social responsibility for health, expanding into investment in health development, consolidating and expanding partnerships for health, and strengthening the health promoting potential of communities and the capacity of individuals to take action, which already points into the rather new concept of health literacy, which will concern us in this seminar in a few weeks. And ensuring an infrastructure for health promotion. And this is again where we can, as hospital pedagogues, step in because we are part of an infrastructure in the school system, especially in Bavaria, and also by working in a hospital school or in the field by being able to change up existing infrastructure in hospitals, for example. Well, and getting from one point to another, I'd now after I showed you a very brief overview over those two very important documents for health prevention, I'd now like to I'd like to focus in on our work as hospital pedagogues and would address following question in a discussion. What are special features of working as a hospital pedagogue? What are skills that we need? What is work environment like, etc. And I would just like to stop my screen sharing and maybe we can get into a small discussion for a few minutes on that. I think Andre will have something to say about that, as always. No, he doesn't. That's a first for me. Andrea, are you there? I think he is. Well. But you can hear me, am I right? Okay. Trotz Zampis, man kann mich schon hören, oder?
Ja, kann man.
Sehr schön. Mal abgesehen von meinem schlechten Englisch, aber das kriegen wir hin. André, bist du noch da? Okay. Hmm. Well, I would say I would just like to continue then. I just need to start my screen share again. Well, very well. Um, as hospital pedagogues, we are kind of in the in-between of teachers and what in Germany is called, I think, social workers. Basically, as hospital pedagogues, we have a very specialized work environment, I would say. We have very special skills needed just because we are in a specialized work environment, which is, I think, mainly influenced by the fact that Um, we are not working entirely in schools. Maybe there are hospital schools, and maybe there are not in certain hospitals. And sometimes we also might homeschool some students, which is very special because usually in the German education system, homeschooling isn't allowed, but it is allowed in the rare case that somebody is just physically, anatomically not able to visit um, a regular school, and um, that also influences what special skills or practices or even basic knowledge is needed to being able to work as a hospital pedagogue. And the funny thing about that is that with this seminar that we are currently teaching this semester and with the lecture series that is taking place each summer semester, which is organized by Andre, uh, we are kind of filling a gap that is not even really pointed out until or being pointed out up until now. Hospital pedagogy is not as it isn't something that you can study in German teacher education. It is not something that has a curriculum of any kind, and it isn't something that is taught at universities very much because there are no chairs, no professorships for it, and I think in Germany only like five universities or universities of applied sciences teach hospital pedagogy. There are um, us, of course, at the LMU. There are is the Pädagogische Hochschule Heidelberg, I think, the University of Würzburg in Germany as well, in Bavaria as well, I mean, and I think the University of Oldenburg or Osnabrück, one of these. Still, you are able to work as a hospital pedagogue because we also need hospital pedagogues in the German education system to yeah, to school those children that are hospitalized at a certain point of their school life. And it, yeah, that throws up the question, what special skills and what knowledge do these people need? And in the current field of teacher training and teachers education, the yeah, the theory or the concept of core practices is gaining quite some traction, like I said in the beginning. And core practices kind of are an evolution of the kind of classic term of competencies in the German education system. Everything circles around the idea of what competences students and also in later stages uh, students at universities are having or have to acquire. And this often leaves something that is called the also Theorie-Praxis-Lücke, theory-practical gap in English, that that describes that students oftentimes know what they would have to do, but they haven't either done it or they are not able to use this theoretical knowledge in their practical work. And the theory or the concept of core practices, which is gaining traction in Bavaria as well, since a paper that was published by the so-called Expertinnen und Expertenkommission zur Weiterentwicklung der Lehrkräftebildung in Bayern in May of this year. Core practices describe a shift in the didactics of training. Core practices are frequently occurring situations that are central to work and can be mastered on the basis of knowledge components, they call it. Knowledge components would be like specialized knowledge, certain competences, or the knowledge about situations, etc. Die Expertinnen- und Expertenkommission plainly describes core practices as a significant action strategies based on specific job requirements. Some examples for a school context would be for preventing disruptions during seminars and lectures, guiding cooperative learning between students, for example, creating test tasks. So how do I test whether my students learn something? Giving feedback or just plainly explaining things. Yeah, like explaining how tidal waves work or something like that. And the colleagues Voss et al. Proposed yeah, a schematic on how to model core practices, which is in German right here, but I can take you on a trip around this wheel, this theoretical wheel, and they say to yeah to know or to design a core practice for teachers. The first thing should be that we should think about whether or what qualifications up and coming teachers should have uh, when they are done with absorbing uh, the core practice that is central to what is being taught right now. Second step should be identifying these so-called uh, knowledge components I talked about, like what specialized knowledge do they need, what competences, what do they have to know, and what must they be able to do for solving certain yeah work problems they have. third step would be to think about what methods could be used so that the students can yeah create those knowledge components kind of in their own mind and in their own practice as students and later teachers. And the fourth and fifth step aren't as relevant for us. They concern themselves with how that can be tested as well, because in a university setting, usually at the end of a semester, we have to test our students to grade them so that they can continue their education. This, up until here, this would be the literature or the references I concerned myself with today. And I'm stopping the screen share right now. André, bist du wieder zurück? Nö. Well, any questions on that up until here? That's great. Ähm, Frau Zampli auf Ihrer Seite, Sie sind jetzt, glaube ich, heute die Einzige, die des Deutschen mächtig ist, außer André Gomez. Auf Ihrer Seite irgendwas?
Nein, auch nicht. Alles
Okay.
klar bis jetzt.
Sind Sie mit dem Konzept von Core Practices vertraut?
Nein, nicht wirklich.
Okay. Ja, ich habe es natürlich jetzt heute mit meinem sehr wilden Englisch natürlich auch nicht so richtig hundertprozentig wiedergeben können. Es ist natürlich aus diesem Gutachten zur Lehrkräftebildung in Bayern hervorgegangen, jetzt, dass man da sich jetzt vermehrt mit beschäftigen soll. Da geht es vor allem darum, dass man sagt, äh, welche konkreten Situationen müssen Lehrkräfte konkret meistern und wie lassen sich die möglichst konkret meistern. Also es geht dann, Sie sehen, ich wiederhole mich schon so, es ist auch irgendwie so ein wiederholendes Ding. Es ist ein bisschen redundant. Es geht irgendwie darum, Theorie und Praxis zu vernetzen, indem sozusagen Fachwissen gleich mit Special Skills irgendwie zusammengeführt wird, sodass es heißt, wie gehe ich mit Störungen um? Welches Fachwissen brauche ich dafür? Aus welcher Literatur zum Beispiel auch? Und in welchen Momenten muss ich welche Skills anwenden? Und irgendwie ist das Ganze eine Erweiterung dieser klassischen Kompetenzorientierung nach Weinert, aber irgendwie auch nicht. Die Idee ist gewesen, dass sozusagen es heißt, jetzt machen wir mal was so richtig praktisch orientiert ist, aber eigentlich ist es wieder theoretisiert worden, weil ja jetzt die Studierenden sozusagen einfach eine Liste bekommen. Ihr könnt ihnen jetzt eine Liste geben, so was brauchen sie an Core Practices. Das wäre möglich. Ah, und jetzt ist André Gomez back. Kannst du uns hören?
Ja, ich kann hören.
Okay.
What do you need?
Uh, Nothing. I was just thinking whether we could kind of like have a discussion on what kind of core or special practices we would need as hospital pedagogues, but it didn't quite sit right with the group I had the I thought nobody seemed to want to talk.
Also the point from the people from Tanzania is that they are learning about it. They don't have hospital pedagogy in Tanzania.
Mm.
Now we are in contact with a hospital in Dar es Salaam to start the first hospital pedagogy class in a big hospital in Dar es Salaam. And this is really something new for them. Yeah, it's the same for the people in Bolivia that will see this video later. They don't have it there. And this is a question, Christoph, that came last, I think, nee, yeah, last semester when we are talking about hospital pedagogy and inclusion for students with cancer. And one professor from Guatemala say, yeah, here when a student have cancer in the north of the country, until he arrived in the big hospital in the capital, he died. So we don't have the um, like here we say that we talk about 80% from survives when after the treatment, yeah. And this is I know it's a challenge, but at the same time for me it's um a point that we have to building bridges between not just education but medicine personnel too. Why
Mm,
we have so a high level of people that get better after treatment of cancer, and in other countries the number is so below. Yeah, and the same we can say many things in Europe about yeah, all problems, but we have to say that we are far away from many other countries that don't have this discipline.
mm,
In this point, the people from Tanzania, they can. It's difficult to talk about it. What I can talk about that we have already discussed it in one visit in a hospital here in hospital school in Munich, it's that there they have another kind of problems. For example, they don't have eating disorders in Tanzania like we have it here. Yeah?
mhm.
They live in a culture that they are thankful to have something to eat. And eating disorder is something that, yeah, it's not a
It is
thematic for them.
it is environmentally or it distributed by the environment. It is psychologically not possible.
Yeah.
This is also interesting because I was just talking about the core practice approach, which I see quite critically, but this is something that would be concerned or that would hospital pedagogues in certain cultural contexts, or even if they have students slash patients from uh, certain cultures or countries that they are not familiar with, would have to adapt pretty quickly. And I was talking about this core practice approach and think that this is where core practices kind of fail. They are cut to the brim of a certain situation and don't reflect on who gets thrown into a certain situation and what kind of psychological, socioeconomic,
Mm.
I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever background those people might have. And this is something a core practice other
Yeah.
than a competence cannot provide. If I am competent in hospital pedagogy, I might be able to adapt to those moments. But if I only are able to act out like five different core practices, I can explain or
Mm-hmm.
some, and for other core practices, then I am not able to kind of adapt to situations that are driven by or motivated by uh, cultural impacts I'm not familiar with. It's
Mm-hmm.
something I find extremely interesting right now.
For me, in this point, this is a part of my PhD, medical anthropology. It's like we cannot copy paste one system from
Yeah,
Germany to Tanzania, Bolivia, or the Bosnian. I think the most important thing in the teacher studies is to be prepared to deal with some of the situation. Sure, have some similarities. For example, the hospital as a class or has a place to work in this hierarchy that we have it with the doctors. It's something new for them, and they have to deal with this, or better say they have to learn how to cooperate with a lot of doctors or physiotherapeutes or personnel from the hospital. And this is skills that you can learn. So,
yeah.
claro, yeah. But I'm really against this theme copy paste that doesn't work because
Yeah,
they have another kind of relationship or uh, neon distance. Yeah, this they are more proximal for the another and they
yeah.
touch more and they don't have the psychiatric problems that we have here right now in Europe. Yeah, this is another point.
It kind of raises, or it should raise awareness to also the fact that we are in Germany, a first world country with quite the privileges. This is also something a core practice cannot provide. A core practice is a practical approach and not one that is philosophically found. And
Mm.
this is something that gets, I think, is or it is not transparent enough. And but I think our colleagues that are working in the field right now, they would say the same thing, and they are, I think, the complete other way around. I would say they are um, especially competent in intercultural exchange and stuff.
Yes, yes, yes. Something that I find really critical, and so I don't know. I have more Germans here they can talk to, but the point is, for example, I have been some weeks ago with one student from Tanzania, Jabi, in Switzerland, in Zurich, in the hospital, and you don't see migrants as teacher work in the hospital,
Yeah,
but they have many students, pupils that are migrants, and they have to deal with this situation.
yeah,
Yeah, and but it's the same when you go here to a special school in Munich. All my students are from Munich and are surrounding Munich, but then they go work in these special schools, and they have more than 90% of kids with migration background.
mm,
Yeah. And this is this skill that intercultural competence that I think we have to learn more in the university.
yeah,
I mean, the teacher training. That way, I think it's so valuable when you have someone like you that work with VECT values. Yeah.
yeah.
Because I don't know in your university how fit are our students with this thematic intercultural pedagogy. And this is something that we need not just in the hospital but in the schools too.
Yeah, this is, I mean, this is why we have the Research Center for Value Education and Teacher Training at the LMU, uh, because we are of the opinion that you cannot kind of throw it on the individual to create their own values, but we say, okay, values have to be, or the competence to reflect on values that I kind of conglomerate around myself via society, my parents, or myself,
Mm.
or the books that I read. They are, it is a competence to being able to choose what kind of values I want to take from that, and not only being told we have as values in Germany uh, being on time, being
Yes.
neat,
Uh-huh.
uh, I don't know, tolerance, respect, or something, football. Those are our
Mm.
values, and that is not enough. We have to take a step back to take two steps forward in that regard. We have to gain the competence to reflect on values, and this is why we have the research center for that.
Yes, but I don't know how strong you work with the students from the faculty where I work, for example.
Very,
You know?
uh,
Yeah.
we are concerned with that.
Mhm. This is good because I think it's really important for not for the hospital pedagogy, but for life too. You have a word now that you have a lot of people from many countries living in Munich, for example. Let's talk about Munich because you are here. But in the whole Europe, you are
Yeah.
so gemished, yeah, and you have to learn to convive with another one, to respect another one, and go a little bit far away from this ethnocentrism. Yeah, no, just my food, just my God, it's the correct or my way of life. And I think this is, yeah,
Yeah.
components that we have to learn, yeah, in my opinion.
Yeah. Totally agree. What do you think? Shall we? Do you have something left? I mean, that would have been my input and the discussion that we had. Shall we? Do you have something else to show or to tell or something? Otherwise, I would think we might be done already for today.
Okay, if no one have to say something, Eliafura, Koba, Veronica, Christina, everyone's quiet. I'm afraid sometimes when no one speaks. It's not
Yeah,
like
same,
I
same,
I
same.
understand nothing or I'm not here. Um,
Thank,
please, Jabi.
okay, thank you for good presentation. And we are still studying about the hospital pedagogy. So this is very, very interesting to our home country. As you have already said, we are still learning about this, and we wish to start with this hospital pedagogy school or classes in the big national hospital, Muhimbili in Dar es Salaam.
But
Very
Christoph,
cool.
and Jabi, this is a process. You are in contact with the people there to see if you find the localization as a room in the hospital and train some people. They can train the people there too,
Mm.
um, to start this discipline. The first one in Tanzania. That would be a big step for us if you can reach this.
Yeah, that would be needed, of course. You need, we would, or somebody would need to train people so that they can train people.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I think there is always the problem of kind of this is where bureaucracy comes into play. Uh,
but the point is we know people from the government and we know people from the Ministry of Education, Christoph.
yeah,
Yeah, this is the good point from our work in Tanzania. We have many contacts in different levels. In the Germany embassy too, we have good contact, and the work it's a cooperative work. Let's say like that way we can move forward because this is really a big political step to the country.
well, not to leave you tonight with a negative point of view, but we gotta admit, as I said before, Germany concerning teacher training in hospital pedagogy, we are not that much far ahead of all of the rest of the world because also in Germany, hospital pedagogy is not institutionalized as a subject that you can study at university or universities of applied sciences. So, Herr Mohr fragt, gibt es über die möglichen angegebenen Literatur hinaus noch weitere Literatur zu empfehlen ist? Herr Mohr, können Sie mir, ach so, nein, Sie sind die Frau Mohr, gell? So rum war's. Ähm, ist das richtig?
Ja, genau, ich bin die Frau Mohr, ja, ja.
Ich,
Kann auch
jetzt
gerne
erinnere ich
kurz
mich
ein
wieder.
Video anmachen. Ach, da bin ich, genau. Ich wollte einfach nur wissen, in Moodle gab es ja so eine Bibliografie zu den einzelnen Seminaren, die wir haben werden. Ich habe mir das also alles angeguckt und wollte einfach wissen, ob es jetzt auch zu dem, was wir heute haben, Professional Attitudes, ob es da, ach, soll ich lieber Englisch sprechen, weil alle Englisch?
Alles gut, ich glaube, das
Ja,
passt schon.
okay. Ob es da noch irgendwelche Literatur gibt, die interessant wäre für jemand, der jetzt quasi direkt anfängt und ja, was man auch lesen können sollte.
Also André, du kannst mir vielleicht gleich auch noch was dazu sagen. Also von meiner Seite aus kann ich jetzt tatsächlich da erstmal so grob nicht mit dienen, weil also mir ist einfach diese Idee mit dem Core Practices heute gekommen, weil ich mich da gerade im Rahmen meiner anderen Publikationen einfach sehr stark mit auseinandersetzen muss und es halt einfach sehr, sehr kritisch sehe, irgendwie diese
Okay.
Idee. Ähm,
Hm.
äh, von dem her zu diesen Professional Attitudes, das weiß ich jetzt aus dem FF gar nicht. Natürlich gibt es diese klassischen, auch ja irgendwie immer noch durchgeführten, auch groß angelegten Studien so zur Professionalisierung und professionellen Unterrichtswahrnehmung. Aber das ist alles nicht zugeschnitten auf die Pädagogik bei Krankheit. Jetzt
Okay,
weiß ich nicht, André,
das
kennst du
wäre jetzt
da
meine
was?
Frage. Hm.
Gibt es da gibt es da irgendwie so Grundlagenliteratur?
Nee, I know some literature, but from Chile and Mexico.
Okay.
Also
Hm.
Spanish literature. But I am
Mhm.
preparing the Spanish literature to share in the Moodle course too, because
Mhm.
Christoph, you are talking about before about the Germany culture, the like hospital pedagogy here, and in the later series that we had before, we can see the difference between hospital pedagogy in Portugal and in Germany, for example.
Okay.
Ja.
Yeah, and if you read the literature, it's really it's different, the
Mhm.
focus,
Mhm.
really different.
Okay.
Was es höchstens noch gibt, Frau Mohr, ist, ich habe mich im Sommersemester, als ich in der Vorlesung lesen durfte, bei André Gomez, ich habe was gemacht zu Grundfragen der Werteerziehung in der Pädagogik bei
Das habe ich mir
Krankheit.
schon angeguckt. Das habe ich mir schon angeguckt.
Ah,
Ja, ja.
das freut mich umso mehr.
Ja,
Ich hoffe, damit konnte man was arbeiten.
ja, ja, ja.
Das wäre sonst noch sowas, was mir da jetzt noch zu einfallen würde, so
Okay,
ohne
alles
den
klar.
eigenen
Gut,
Werbeblock einzuschieben. Okay,
danke.
gerne. Well, taking this as a leap, thank you all very much for listening and participating in our discourse. Have fun in Germany, and to everybody who is here via Zoom right now. In next week, we are meeting again, this time in person in the Leopoldstraße 13, yeah, at 4 p.m. on Thursday. Thank you very much and goodbye.